Welcome to Ready, Set, Real Estate, where we will help empower and educate you on many different aspects of real estate, finance, and investing. Each week, we will expand your knowledge and uncover hidden truths. We will break down real-world scenarios and study actual how-to strategies. Anyone can buy real estate, but together we'll ensure you make smart real estate investment decisions. Now, here's your host, award-winning author, international speaker, and real estate educator, Lisa Gillette.
Happy Wednesday, wherever you are on this phenomenal planet. You would remember that from Shift Your Thinking Tuesdays when we did that. And I said, happy Tuesday to all you beautiful souls, wherever you are on this phenomenal planet. I've got good energy. I'm feeling all the good juju. We finally got through one of our closings, and I was just sharing with our guest today how that went. And so when you talk with other real estate colleagues and professionals who understand what it takes, who understand and overstand what it takes to get through to the finish line, closing, there's funding, recording, closing, and officially, the security companies know before everybody else know that you close. And that's when you know for sure that your deal is done, is when they're calling you to sell you some security service. So once I started to get those phone calls, I knew we're in the clear, we're in the green. Welcome to another information-packed episode. You know what time it is. It's that time of your favorite podcast to drop some real estate gems. Listen, press 1 lets me know you here. Press 2 lets me know you shared it. You know the price of admission for all this free game. Press 1 lets me know you here. 2 lets me know you shared it. Now, before I bring on today's guests, I'm looking forward. Agents, this is for you, especially new agents who are new licensees, who are coming into the industry. You're a new wave. This is a new wave of generation of agents who are coming into a new way of doing business, earning business, getting paid for that business. So I think this discussion today is that much more timely and important. So make sure you are letting someone know this is the time to jump in, listen. And if you're not catching us on our live screen, make sure you are subscribed to your favorite podcast anywhere and everywhere. Ready, Set, Real Estate replays on our podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, you name it, all over. And thank you for those of you who are listening to us internationally. We've got quite a growing audience in the UK and Germany, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty impressed by that. So thank you all for your continued love and support. Before I bring our guest, I also want to share, of course, I'm going to jump into disclaimers. So let's do that first. But of course, just give a quick little background for those of you who are new to me and learning about this. And you stumbled across this and didn't realize we are now on 250 episodes. That means we've been going 250 episodes today strong. That's not a made up number. That means I've turned on this camera, turned on the mic, and I have been sharing and pouring into you for the last now 7 years. So yeah, I'm here for you. We're here for you. And anyone who I bring on my show is someone that I've vetted, and we're looking to support what they do, because they're either leading with education, they're doing great things, they're operating with integrity and transparency, and we've just got good people that we're connected to that we want to extend our platform to you, our community, our listening audience as well. All right. With that being said, without further ado, let's bring on. I'm going to read intros first, of course. We'll do intros, then I'll bring him on. Don't you love it how I get right into it? So I'm kind of saving you on commercials today, y'all. No commercials. Maybe when we do breaks. But I want to introduce to you all. Today's guest is Emil Belvin, who's a real estate broker and investor. Let me do this real quick. Emil has been someone I connected with in the past, and just real overall good person, just good vibes. And I've liked what he did. And I remember saying to myself, one day we were going to do something together, whether it was, part of what he's doing with showing and training agents how to invest and flip property. He's got a signature presentation and training that he does that focuses on showing agents how to turn those opportunities into profits, right? And I'm excited to have him on today's show. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Emil, who unofficially began his real estate career at the age of 25 when he purchased his first property. Depending where you are, that may or may not be possible. We're in California, so there's still some deals out there to be a young person who can still acquire with some discipline. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that because I always remind you, it's not like buying a pair of shoes where you can return it. That's not how that works. Although I've had a client who tried to return it before I even gave her the keys. She said, put it back on the market. And I was like, huh? Anywho, that purchase stirred up something in him, like most, that led him to get his real estate license just a few later after that purchase. And then since getting his real estate license, he's gone on to obtain his broker's license, start his own real estate brokerage firm called Cal Estate Brokers right here in Southern California, and form a real estate investment group. That's where our focus will be today, is learning more and talking about his real estate investing aspect. And that investment group, known as Golden Street Investment Group, LLC, which focuses on the acquisition and disposition of distressed properties. And of course, like most entrepreneurs, driven by this passion and desire for financial literacy through service and education, Emil continues to share his financial insights with clients, staff, new real estate agents, and real estate investors. I mentioned about his signature workshop, 7 reasons why real estate agents make the best, not good, not okay, but the best real estate investors. Again, that's called 7 reasons why real estate agents make the best real estate investors. He's presented this at local real estate boards and private training sessions. So if you are looking for someone to come talk, this is your guy. You can learn more about Emil's real estate investing insights by subscribing to his newsletter and following his YouTube channel, The Vacant Home Guy. I'll give you that in once I bring him on. I'll drop that in the comments and in the chat below, so you'll have his handles. You've got his website, so you can subscribe and learn more about what he's doing and follow his work. Emil continues to move forward in his vision of building legacy. We've talked about that here on this show tons of time. Entrepreneurship, and my favorite, financial literacy and economic empowerment by encouraging those around him to take control of their financial future. One of Emil's favorite quotes comes from the Jedi Master Yoda: do or do not. There is no try. Emil, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I like the intro. That was awesome. Fantastic. And congratulations on your 250th episode. That is incredible.
Thank you.
Yes,
Made possible by you today.
Well, hey, we'll stay the course and keep it going.
Absolutely. So thank you for time blocking and bringing your energy here and bringing your knowledge. I wanted to, it was so timely. So for those of you who know me and heard me offline and online, this was kismet for us to bring Emil on the show, because I shared with Emil that I was talking with my husband, Kyle, and we were just talking about, we come across opportunities, right? We come across opportunities in our day-to-day. And for me, it's a fine line, Emil. And I don't know if you want to go here, because so it's challenging. I guess it's a mindset shift. When I say we come across opportunities where our clients are in dire situations, right? Sometimes. And it's that fine line of not wanting to rob anyone's equity, but being fair, right? What's fair to us if we do consider purchasing or investing or utilizing that property as an investment, and then also providing a solution to that client who may be in a dire situation. That'll be a question for you. How do you make that decision? Is it a decision? Is it a mindset to not be that person who's lying, stealing, manipulating, and trading your soul for your profits and not helping your client? Because we see that in business.
Yeah, that's wow. That's a fantastic question. All right, so I'll give you a couple examples. So one of my first transactions that I worked on was in San Pedro. It was a townhome. And she was a client. I had known her for some years. And, she's one of those that kind of would get behind. And she ended up having to file bankruptcy. So she filed bankruptcy, and that kind of postponed, the foreclosure proceedings and everything. And then some kind of way, after about 2 or 3 years, she didn't do what she was supposed to in the bankruptcy. She was getting behind again. And, I just happened to be looking like, hey, I had, seen her in about a year or so. And I said, hey, I wonder what's going on with her property. And I looked it up, and it was back in foreclosure, active foreclosure, with a notice of trustee sale.
Okay.
So I immediately called her. I said, hey, I don't know if you know, but your property is going to be sold in, like, let's say we had about 60 days at the time. And she said, yeah, call me after my birthday. I'm gonna go, which was about 2 weeks out. And I was like, this is kind of pressing. Like, we need to deal with this kind of right now, but okay, after your birthday, I'll get in touch with you. So I get in touch with her, and she just kind of has this, dragging her feet response. And so I'm like, okay, all right, well, I tried. It is what it is. I'm gonna go at your pace. So then, probably about, I'm gonna say 2 to 3 weeks out, it starts to kind of dawn on her. Maybe she's getting some letters, some calls, something about the sale, and she says, "Hey, I need help." And I'm like, "Well, I can't like do a traditional 30-day escrow because it's 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out." And so I immediately kind of started reaching out, like, "Oh, well, maybe I can try to purchase it from her," and then I paused for a second, and I said, "Well, she's calling me for help because she's a client. And if it were me, what would I want, my broker to do for me?"
Hmm.
Well, I'd want my broker to try to postpone the sale, like, see if they can buy me some time so I could sell it myself. And in that thought, I said, well, maybe her daughter could buy it because her daughter has a decent income. And I said, well, I could, try to get her qualified in this, couple days or week, and then get her to buy it. But I need at least, 45 days. Yeah. So I called the lender to see if the lender would give us an extension, kind of postpone the trustee sale. And they said, absolutely not. Like, she's already done the bankruptcy. We've been waiting. We've been working with her. That's not going to happen. So at that point, I said, well, the only thing to do is, she has to sell it. So I said, if I was able to buy it from her, fair market price for the condition, that I can make a profit. I said, well, at least I can allow her some time to stay there while we look for she and her daughter another property.
Okay.
About 40, I told her I could give her 30, 45 days, but she had to be out kind of thing at day 45, which, was generous. But anyway, to your point, like, a lot of times when an opportunity comes up, of course, as an investor, you're looking at the numbers, but there is the human element that's also there that we have to take into consideration because, you never know. It could be us on that other end at some point as well. For one reason or another, and you just kind of want to always keep that part in mind also. I think that's important, but I think that's a good example of, kind of like marrying the two together, where it's not just about profit, but there's also this human element.
Right. So you pointed out the key part there is you've got to be a person thinking of the human element. And so again, this is in a line with what we're dealing with right now with the changes in the industry. I want to touch on this because as we're going to explore this conversation about why you believe agents make the best real estate investors, here we're now dealing with the NAR settlement lawsuits, right? And CAR and the various MLSs who have opted into that NAR settlement have now said, here's how we can support this change, right? By way of, negotiating commission structures, not on the MLS, but or will not be published. But hey, it's on you all to decide how you're going to come up and negotiate with your fees. But at the same time, we're being inundated with new forms, new rules. And right now, it's supposed to be like the standardized experience. It makes me feel like when they redid the HUD-1, right, at 1003, and then they said, everyone's got to use the same form so buyers can compare apples to apples, the APR with one bank and the interest rate with another bank, and it shouldn't be all convoluted. It should be very simple. But what I'm seeing with the forms we're given and other participating brokerages is everyone's got their own form that they're coming up with as well, as it relates to how we get paid, right? Buy side, sell side. Now, given these changes, I just wanted to give that some context. I wanted to lay some context for those who are listening and weren't following, weren't paying attention, that I've been talking about this since 2019, since this thing first started. Remind folks of what's happened and where we are now, especially for agents who I think there's I forget I think we're at about a 52% attrition rate in the industry that we've got mass exodus. So this is only propel that, and it'll continue to propel that. Do you feel with these changes and market conditions that agents are still the prime candidate or person to make for real estate, the best real estate investors?
Yes. I mean, as I think is always stated, like you got that 80-20 rule regardless. So, we got the 20% that's going to be doing 80% of the transactions. I mean, that's kind of across the board. We all hear it in different real estate offices, and we see it as well. You got those agents that are going to rise, the cream rises to the top.
Right.
Those that, aren't as savvy and committed fall off. So I think that, with these changes, we'll see exactly the same thing that we've been seeing. Those that, this is, there's a show back in the, not show, there's this book back in the day called Who Moved My Cheese? And I read it a while ago with my kids. And I said, it's kind of the mentality you have to have. Like, things are constantly going to change. Like, the internet shook how many businesses? Amazon is shaking up how many businesses?
Yes.
And if you don't find a way to acclimate and, adjust to the change in times, the music industry, we talking about like, Tower Records went out a bit, the Warehouse. These are huge companies that we grew up with. And, we got streaming now, Blockbuster, Netflix, the list goes on. So, our industry is going to get impacted as well, but we have to find a way to adjust and acclimate and stay relevant. And this is a good example in time where the cream is going to rise to the top because of that.
Well said. Well said. So essentially what I gather from that is pretty much what I've been saying. Top 17% means you're closing six transactions a year. This top 17% of agents. Not, when you think volume and numbers, it doesn't seem like that's a lot. But then when you talk about, I know you're laughing, right? And then don't get me, when I was reading these numbers and the data and and you're talking about offices with 500 agents, 120 agents, like all these big agents. It's like there aren't even enough properties being sold for every agent to close one deal, which means how are you surviving?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the reality of this industry. And we're going to see that more and more. I really appreciate that you said right now about the 80-20, especially when people talk about, getting into this business. There's some, getting trained, getting coached, networking, right, folks, are all important things when you talk about rising to the top. How does one pivot? When as an agent that you are ready to, is there a moment that you're ready financially, credit-wise, to then shift into thinking as a real estate investor or taking on an opportunity? Talk to us a little bit about that. And by the way, guys, we're on with Emil Belvin, the vacanthomeguide.com. We're right here streaming on his website. I love that he has pictures because I always am enamored when I run across these homes. I'm like, oh, look at this potential. I want to talk to us a little bit about these homes that you buy. But to answer the question, how does an agent know when's the right time to shift into investing? So
I think you can't belittle or discredit your experience as an agent. I talk to agents who are newer, and a lot of times they'll say, I just want to be an investor, as if to say being an agent's kind of a waste of time or beneath me or, something of that sort. And being an agent gives you a good understanding of the transaction and the intricacies of the transaction, the emotions of the transaction. Yes, you're able to understand, the process, like what happens first. Do I do my loan docs before I do my appraisal? You know what I mean? Like, the A, B, C, and then the D. That's great. But then you also understand the emotion of the transaction, like what the seller's feeling, especially if you've been on the listing side, what the buyer's feeling, and, buyer's remorse and seller's remorse, and how to kind of navigate that delicately to hit certain emotional points of your counterpart, so that way you can put a deal together that's a little bit more savvy, because everybody has something that motivates them in the transaction. Some people, it's about the money. Like, you have a trustee, right? I have a trustee I'm working with right now that has some health issues. I am the buyer, and the trustee is, I don't know the trustee, but they're selling the estate, and they're having some health challenges, and they got to sell 3 properties, and for them, it's not about maximizing the value of these properties. It's about unloading the properties and selling the estate, you see? So understanding what's happening in the transaction gives you a little bit of leverage to know, what you can and can't do. So I think it's very relevant to have, I think the experience you gain as an agent is very relevant. So don't underestimate the experience, first off. And as far as like, having the money, yes, that's relevant. Having the credit, all that's good, but that's not necessarily the be all end all. My light bulb moment hit me. I was probably about, I got my real estate license in 2007. And I think my light bulb moment happened in 2015. So I was about 8 years into being an agent. I was probably averaging about, let's say, 2-3 sales a year during that time. And so I found one of these houses, like the one that's flashing on the screen. And it was one of my clients that had come to me and said, hey, I want to sell this property. This is what's going on. The property is in bad shape. And so I said, oh, great, sure, I'll sell it for you. So I ended up selling the property, doubling in the commission. Back, it was 2015, prices were, 10-year ago prices. So let's just say it was about a $300,000, $400,000 sale. And, whatever the double end on that would have been, about 15 to 20,000. And I felt really good about it. Like, that was a pretty good hit. Double in is my first deal. I was able to double in, dual agent. And then I went back and looked at the property after the investor had flipped it. And I looked at the numbers, at what they brought it at, what they sold it for, potentially what their investment for renovation would have been. And I'm thinking it would have been about 150 would have been their profit. And so for me, yes, I was happy with the 15 or 20,000, but then I said, man, that was a deal that landed on my desk. And if I had the resources and the know-how, I would have been able to profit a lot more than what I actually did. So credit is important, yes. Having some down payment and money is important. I'm not going to say that they're not, but having the experience is probably more valuable. So for me, my light bulb moment was that one. And that's probably what, did it for me. The experience I had, about 8 years in, as well as, having that property land on my desk, it made me say, well, what do I need to put in place so that if something like that happens again, I'm more prepared the next time.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a good one, because I know a lot of us have come across, I've had some instances where the investors are like, Lisa, why don't you buy this yourself?
Yeah.
Why don't you buy this yourself? So you kind of go, oh, well, and for me, I know I've been in the overthinking it. I've been in the overthinking of what's involved and all the intricacies. Maybe perhaps, Emil, there is such a thing as knowing too much, because then I am overthinking and I've seen things go left, and then you go, okay, now if it doesn't quite like work out the way you planned.
Yeah, kind of like that analysis by paralysis kind of thing, like you say. Because you're right. There is a lot of things that could go wrong, but for me, I look at it like, just getting in my car, hopping on the freeway, doing 80 to get to the office. There's a lot can go wrong, So, once you have done it enough times, you feel more comfortable with the risk of
Yeah.
what could go wrong. And
Yeah.
you start, with the first couple times, your mind is totally like, what am I doing? This could go wrong. And whereas after you've done it for a little while, you kind of feel more comfortable, with driving a stick shift, eating a cheeseburger, talking on your cell phone,
Right.
because you've done it so many times.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'd like to direct this question in terms of so what does that look like in working with you, working alongside with you? I'm jumping ahead here, but maybe if you can just clarify, you offer coaching training to agents, you walk alongside them to help them navigate that, because not everybody's broker, or not everybody's with a company or a team that is flipping, right? That is involved
Yeah.
with that. So getting connected with someone like you, how does that work? If I come across something, I refer you the deal. Talk to us about some different ways that maybe we can monetize an opportunity together, both with hands-on and maybe I don't want to jump in on the investing side of it.
For sure. So last year was my first year in the office. It was 2023, where I had a group of interns. It was about 5 interns that came on. And we put together a pretty good curriculum in regard to like how this works. And, for me right now, it's just a matter of kind of launching that officially again. My mom passed last year, so I kind of put a little break on that. With the interns, probably they were from about June to about September. And then, mom passed in August. And so that kind of overshadowed everything else for the remainder of the year. And then getting back into things this year, just with all the changes and trying to get back going, I just hadn't got it off the ground. But I would say if anybody's interested in working with me, definitely email me, because we have a list of a few agents that are interested. But as far as working with me on projects, whenever I have a project, and I have one right now, real time, with the trustee that I was just telling you about that I'm looking to purchase. So whenever I purchase a property, I try to, it's be a good start to kind of bring some people on that want to kind of learn and get their feet wet. And we have, a training. I would say it's more or less a training, and we'll go through that project from, renovation to disposition of how that works. The details, we can kind of go into the specifics of that one-on-one or whenever I talk to folks. But for the most part, it's been when I have a property. Now, if an agent has a property, say like, I work in an office, we don't do a lot of flips. But if an agent has a property they want to bring to me, then it's almost like follow me, shadow me on this project. If you can't purchase it. I know a lot of times, this will come up. And one thing I often mention to people is, they'll talk about the barriers to entry. When I talk to agents, I don't have the finances, I don't have the skills, I don't have the resources, because those are things that you kind of, want to start to build out. Who's your hard money lender? Who's your contractor? Who's your electrician?
Exactly.
Who's your architect? Who's your drafter? Those aren't things you're going to have just because a good deal landed in your lap. But at the same time, you reach out to folks that have that, and try to learn what it is that they're doing. I mean, my contractor he's not an employee of mine. He's a contractor. So he's working on my project. He's working on the next person's project. My drafter, again, these aren't people that are staff where they're, under contract with me solely. So, when you have people in your network, I don't mind sharing folks in my network. Some are licensed, some are not licensed. For some things, you're going to need licensing. Like if you're, doing an addition and needing to get permits with the city, you're going to need licensed people. If you're installing, let's say, a heater, you could probably work with a journeyman, somebody that may not be licensed but knows the skill and how to get that done.
I know what a journeyman is.
Yeah, or flooring or drywall.
I have journeyman foremans and superintendents in my family, so.
Yeah, totally. So journeyman, tile work, drywall, those aren't necessarily things that require a license to do. I mean, if they have them, great. But if they don't, they know what they're doing, you can still get it done. So my point was just simply tapping into somebody that has those resources, especially when you're getting started, is great. And, I'm more than, willing to share information and resources that I have.
That's fantastic. And that's what this show is about, is connecting people with individuals that are open and willing because that's been the biggest challenge, right? Now, there's one thing with barriers of entry, but it's actually connecting with people who are willing, who know how to do this stuff, and it's saying, yes, I'm willing to coach you, train you, mentor you, work with you, show you. I hear it all the time. The people are like, well, that person really is, this is what they're doing. They don't really want to do that and X, Y, and Z. So this is why it's important to have you. I did have one last comment it's a question, so I'll share. So our audience understands that California has a new piece of legislation that just passed this year that relates to if the property owner has acquired a property after January 1st, 2024, that's this year, and they do any renovations or remodel work to that property, and they would they would be required to employ a licensed professional contractor, your HVAC people. These people need to be licensed if the work and labor cost more than $500. So, with that being said, Emil, given that California pre-pandemic and then this whole thing with these e-brokerages that had come out, and they were using algorithms to use algorithms and systems to say, well, if we buy this property at top dollar and we put X amount of dollars into it, we can sell it for this. We saw how that didn't work. But what we saw during that time, and this is really what was challenging, just not just me as an agent professional, but someone who's an advocate of our community, is that there are a lot of people purchasing properties that were not permitted. I appreciate that you were mentioning licensing, permits with the city, et cetera. How do you think that's going to affect our industry overall, with now that this is a requirement that during that escrow transaction, the seller is obligated to disclose contractor information and contact information regarding the work that was completed?
Yeah, so I think one thing I can think of off the top is it's going to increase the construction costs or the renovation costs. And so, of course, that's going to be passed on to the buyer as best as it can be. There'll probably be less things that get done. That's another thing that'll probably happen. Like let's assume that you wanted to do, this landscaping. This kind of more expensive landscaping. It'll probably be, scaled back to something that wasn't as expensive. So some of the things that may have been done on some of the previous properties won't get done. I know one of the things that stands out to me is always the roof. Like whenever there's an opportunity to not replace a roof, I'm not replacing the roof. The roof is like, as long as it's not leaking, right? If it's leaking, then you're stuck. You got to do something. But if it's not leaking, but it's just old and it's got like 5 layers of roof.
Not 5 layers.
It's got 5 layers of roof on it. Hey, that's how it was when I got it. It had 5 layers of roof. So Mr. Buyer, it's something you're going to have to do because I spent the funds doing these other things. So I think some of the costs are definitely going to get passed on to the buyer, and some of the work that may have gotten done won't get done because the budget's going to be a lot higher for the renovation if we're hiring, general contractors versus more of your experienced workers that can get the work, our journeymen that can get the work done, may not be licensed.
Right. Wow. Well, we're in the middle. We're in the midst, not even the middle, because we've just started experiencing a lot of these changes. So, like we've been discussing, changes in commission model. We see rates starting to ease up a little bit. We're getting closer to our sweet spot. I've said on the show, I'm not a lender, folks, but I've shared on the show that our sweet spot in rates has been 5 to 6%. And that's when we start to see things start to move and bubble, and it starts to get really going. And so we're starting to see there. I've looked at rates yesterday. I was sent a rate sheet from one of the lenders, and we're at, like, with no points, we're at 6.125 for a 30-year fix. So I'm like, okay, that means we're getting closer. And of course, if you want to do rate buy downs, then you get that, we get to that 5% and whatnot. And so I'm anticipating, do you anticipate more opportunities for investors to jump in as we're starting to see rates ease up? And is this a better market condition, or do we all wait until after elections and see what happens?
I think for like a new buyer, of course, the lower the rates are, the better. From an investor standpoint, I don't think the rates really bother us so much. The highlight of the rates for us is that the resale of the property will take a shorter period of time because there'll be more buyers that are in the market. In addition to that, we could potentially, because there are more buyers, there probably be more offers. With more offers, we probably can get a better price. So that's kind of the way it impacts, on the investment side. It kind of speeds things up. As you said, it starts to, create a little simmer and things get to moving. So because of that, we know that this property that may have been taking, 30, 45 days to sell, now it takes, 20 days, 15 days to sell because we got more buyers, better interest rates, things are moving a little faster.
Got it. And that it wasn't a trick question. It was one that I wanted you to answer, because although I know the answers in my head, we share the same perspective on rates as it relates to investors. They're not as concerned as buyers, but just put it out there so people can understand when we're shifting that mindset in thinking from a buyer consumer perspective to an investor, whether you're a dealer or an investor for long game. Things like rates are not things that have you all in a bundle, as far as opportunities goes. I want to ask this last question. So talk to me. What would be, I'm looking at some of these photos, roofs missing, burnt properties. Who knows what's behind those boarded up doors and windows? And for you, what would be characteristically the worst condition that affords you the highest profit or better deal? And better deal could be, and you describe that to me, what better deal on, pricing, on the profit, on, the turnaround time, days on market. Is it easier? Because here's what I'm thinking. I always laugh and I say when things are stripped down to the stud, it saves the cost on, the demolition.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if we take that one house that's missing, the roof and it's got all the fire damage, I mean, that one is pretty much, it's pretty much a rebuild, right? That one is probably, it's case by case, because clearly if the house looks like this one, I'm not offering you $400,000 unless it's, in a Westchester or Culverton, a really nice area, right? If it's in, one of our nicer West Side areas, then okay, sure, because the land itself is worth a certain amount. But if a property looks like that, the idea is, well, clearly I have to do everything. It's almost, a complete rebuild, when it's in that much, when it's that bad and that much disarray and shambles like that one, whereas if you find a property like this one, well, this one looks okay from the outside, but that one, like this one right here, that property, it was just more inside, everything needs to be updated, so you want to find, it's a case by case, because sometimes like something can be okay on the inside, but
walls,
the scenario of what's going on with the family that's selling the property, could create a little bit more of an opportunity than that property. Like this property here that's missing the roof, they could be adamant about getting 600,000. Like, why do you need 600,000? Do you not see how this house looks? And they're like, that's our price, take it or leave it. Whereas the house that on the that may not need as much work, this one, they may just be ready to unload it because the trustee's just tired and wants to move on. This was the fourth property they needed to sell in the estate, and it's like, yo, give me 350 or 400. I just need to be done with it.
Got it.
Yeah. It's case by case.
Case by case. So we've talked about on the show just kind of what to look for, the 3 Ds: death, divorce, and desperation. Is essentially what will garner you the kind of the better deals. And it's not so much characteristically the worse the home,
Yes.
It's burnt, it's XYZ characteristically. It's more of what is the situation.
It's always situational. Yes.
Always the situation. And it goes back to what I've always said to agents when we're training agents and we're talking to people. I say the money's in the contracts. Like, understand, is because that death, divorce, desperation is going to show up on how you write those terms.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's going to show up for you. Emil, any last comments here? You've been fantastic in sharing with us. Talk to us more or share what you've got going so that the folks know to connect with you. I will go ahead in the meantime, put your website up for those who are listening, tuning in. Check out Emil at theVacantHomeGuy.com. That's theVacantHomeGuy.com. He's also on YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel at The Vacant Home Guy. Check him out, follow him, subscribe, give him support. And again, we're here to continue to build our community here with our tribe. Last comment?
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I want to just encourage those agents that, brokers or young investors that have been doing it. I started investing in 2016. My escrow closed January 2017, and that was my first investment property. So, just stay the course. I, like to consider myself a resource. If you want to reach out to me, my email is thevacanthomeguy@gmail.com. Definitely always field questions. I got a YouTube video called The 7 Reasons Real Estate Agents Make the Best Investors, like Lisa had mentioned. Also, there's a session that I put together not too long ago called 7 Ways to Raise Capital, which I think is always one that, people like to hear about. How do I raise the money? Because at the end of the day, the money is important, but even more so than the money is finding the right deal. And, once you got a good deal that, is going to make money, then it's being resourceful and pulling your resources together. People in your network, don't underestimate that. You as an agent, you have how many properties you've sold, how many clients have you helped, how many listings have you taken and sold. One of the things you notice, because you're the listing agent, is at the end of the day, your seller's walking away with some net proceeds. They may not need all of that to put into their new home or their next project. They may want to work with you. So, keep those things in mind. Don't underestimate your value and what you bring to the table as an agent, as a broker. And, I just want to encourage you to stay the course. As, I like being with like-minded people. Lisa's been great over the years. We've been knowing each other. I told her that she ran a scenario by me a while ago. I never forgot it. And so you always want to be connected with people that are doing difficult transactions. She likes difficult transactions, as you all know. And so I keep her in my speed dial, because if something comes up, I'm going to hit her up. So again, Lisa, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Emil. Thank you. You've been great. Thank you again for sharing and tuning in. Guys, that's our time. Listen, short, sweet, and powerful. We'll see you next time, next week, on another information-packed episode on Ready, Set, Real Estate. Take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Ready, Set, Real Estate podcast with Lisa Gillette, the LA Super Agent. Please like, subscribe, and share LA Super Agent